the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
These moves for the Chicago Bears could be gaining traction ahead of that November 5th trade deadline. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, make sure you also do me another huge favor. Also, hit the like button on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. So, Bears fans, we are just a couple of days away from the Chicago Bears being back on the playing field when they take on the Washington Commanders. I'm in Washington this Sunday. Super excited to see Bears football back. So if you are also excited for Chicago Bears football being back this Sunday against the Commanders, go ahead and comment Bear down below in the comment section. But Bears fans, I wanted to come on here once again and just talk once again about the trade deadline that is nearing on November 5th around the National Football League. And honestly, we've already heard a bunch of rumors and gone over so many different scenarios of what the Chicago Bears could do at the November 5th trade deadline. We all know at this point that Ryan Poles is a very aggressive GM. He's going to do anything in his power to make sure this roster is hopefully ready to make a push, not only for the playoffs as soon as this year, but maybe even winning the NFC North. And we know for the last couple of years that Ryan Poles has been active at the trade deadline. And I think he will, at the end of the day, be aggressive. But for the most part, we have been talking about the Chicago Bears being buyers, right? Going out, maybe getting Max Crosby, going to get Myles Garrett, Grandison from the New Orleans Saints, maybe an interior offensive lineman as well. But it's starting to sound like the Chicago Bears can actually have it both ways, that they can both be sellers and buyers at the trade deadline. And there has been a growing buzz that Chicago, once again, could be sellers at the deadline, hoping to unload certain players for extra draft capital next offseason. And multiple insiders actually revealed names like running back Khalil Herbert, guard Nate Davis, and defensive end Dominique Robinson are all names to watch the Chicago Bears possibly selling at the November 5th trade deadline. But Jeremy Fowler of ESPN actually dropped another notable name for the Chicago Bears that is actually gaining traction, that the Chicago Bears could basically trade them prior to November 5th trade line. This is what Jeremy Fowler had to say, Bears fans. The Bears were adding at the trade deadline during the early stages of the Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus regime, but they are now in a position to deal away extras. They have built up good depth at several positions, and those who aren't in the rotation could be on the move. Guard Nate Davis was benched in week 3 and inactive in week 6. The team is open to moving him. Doing so would require Chicago to cover some of his $8.75 million salary, but my sense is the Bears are comfortable with that. The experiment hasn't gone well. The Bears are also weighing trade options with pass rusher Dominique Robinson, who could use a fresh start elsewhere. Teams such as the Cowboys, Cardinals, and Commanders are shorthanded at pass rusher. At running back, Khalil Herbert is the odd man out of the rotation and should receive interest. And offensive tackle Larry Borom obviously has that ankle injury. He's eligible to return from injury reserve, so I could see teams inquiring on Chicago's tackle depth. Bears fans, this is a very interesting development for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears, because the Bears can literally have it both ways. They can literally be sellers and buyers at the deadline. If they sell the pieces that they have, like Khalil Herbert, he has really no place on the Chicago Bears offense anymore ever since Luke Getsy went away. And, obviously Khalil Herbert was better at that wide zone scheme. Shane Waldron's more running an inside zone scheme, and that's not really Khalil Herbert's game. So he's kind of left out of the rotation. So you can sell him to a team like the Dallas Cowboys and maybe get like a 4th round pick in return. And obviously I feel like Khalil Herbert with the Dallas Cowboys would be a much better fit, especially when you look at the Cowboys situation. All they have is Ezekiel Elliott. He's just a former shell of himself, so he could instantly go over there and play. Then you have a guy like Nate Davis at this point. I know there's a lot of Bears fans saying, hey, just give us a bag of chips in return and you can take Nate Davis. But still, if you get rid of Nate Davis, that could be another 6th round pick. Obviously Dominique Robinson could be another 7th round pick. And then you look at a guy like Larry Borom, teams like the San Francisco 49ers, maybe the New York Jets, maybe looking for more tackle depth. I think that would also be a good chance for Ryan Poles and Chicago Bears to get a couple of day 3 picks in return. And obviously every draft pick in next year's draft will be valuable as Ryan Poles and Chicago Bears continue to add to their roster and develop these young players into hopefully future stars for this organization. But here's the cool part. The Chicago Bears also have a chance to be sellers at the deadline. Can some of these players be packaged up with maybe one of those second round picks and go get a big time player, maybe like Max Crosby or Myles Garrett or maybe Granderson or an interior offensive lineman that can come help this offense and this offensive line right away? We never know what Ryan Poles could do, but I feel like it's a really unique situation for Ryan Poles and Chicago Bears to be in leading up to that November 5th trade deadline. And we actually have to give huge kudos and huge shout out to what Ryan Poles has been able to build here in Chicago, because he's been building for the last couple of years, just like Jeremy Fowler said. In the early stages of this rebuild, they were just sellers at the deadline, right? Trying to get as much draft capital as possible. But now, since that the Chicago Bears have really good depth and they're, playing really good football, sitting at 4-2 with a really favorable 3-game stretch coming up against the Commanders, the Cardinals, and New England Patriots. So the Bears could realistically be 7-2, pushing for the playoffs and still in the thick of it of the NFC North. Now teams are going to start knocking on the Chicago Bears door. Now it's going to be flipped. People are going to be coming to the Chicago Bears asking for their depth pieces that could be starters elsewhere. Like Khalil Herbert can realistically be a starter for the Dallas Cowboys. Larry Borum can realistically possibly be a starter at right or left tackle, or even maybe a guard elsewhere as well. Maybe Dominic Robinson can go elsewhere and find a really good role for another team. And same thing with Nate Davis. Even though it didn't work out here, maybe Nate Davis can go elsewhere and be a really good player for another team. So just because it didn't work out here in Chicago, maybe they can find another role with a different team. So it's a really interesting position for Ryan Poles to be in. I think he will capitalize. So I think the Chicago Bears will be active selling some key pieces, and they'll also be active maybe buying some key pieces to bring back to this football team to really make a push for the playoffs as soon as this year, and hopefully make a push for the NFC North as soon as this year as well. So like I said, I just want to come on here really quick. Once again, we all know that Ryan Poles will be active. So I guess my main question for you guys is, out of the guys that I listed on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, which one is most likely to be moved prior to the trade deadline? Will it be Khalil Herbert, Dominic Robinson, Nate Davis, or Larry Borum? Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears that you know. Other than that, be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.